now. This is Rev Bruce coming at you on a Saturday morning. Coffee and chat with Rev Bruce. Slide on in and get a sip of this. We're about to talk about some serious situations, societal, business, the whole thing. Knock it out. Let's knock it out. Education versus experience. What is more valuable? Education versus experience. What is more valuable? Who's the judge? Who's to say? When we talk about this, education is actually going to be on here as if it's pitted against experience. Can we say it like that? As if it's to stand against experience. And in my belief, they can work hand in hand. But as far as a society, as far as an ever-changing world, it's a lot different, right? And so when we look at this, the question is, out of both of these, what's more valuable in today's world? And in discussing it, I have to say, we've got to look at the past and we've got to look at the present. We've got to look at the past and what built up this, debate, and then the present, where does it stand now? And I'm going to let you know now, it's going to come down to some simple things. Education versus experience is going to come down to what I find to be two primary things. One is viewpoint, where you stand. And secondly is value system, what you hold as valuable, what you believe are the necessities of life, education versus value system. And on the flip side of that value system is, what do you get in return? What do you get in return for that? What do you get in return for a 4-year higher degree nowadays? Come on. And so before we get into this too deep, I want to say this. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. A good friend of mine, one of my first guests on this show, Coffee and Chat, Viet, V Knowledge, known to many as V Knowledge. Viet, passed away. Not long ago, passed away not long ago. And in that, this, along with something else that I am working on as a tribute project for him, but this would have been the typical debate that Viet and I would have in our conversations about the true value of education versus experience versus what the world is pushing for us to do as people. And so I love this. I love talking to him about it. Love having that, that whole thing of, him being at USD and man, I'm getting some good stuff. And, yeah, man, but you got to get back to the streets. You got to get back in the grind. Otherwise, you'll always believe the ivory tower perspective. So we're going back and forth about a lot of different things educationally and what's valuable and needed in the society to advance things, to move things along for the good of all. So God bless. Look out for that tribute coming out in the next week or so. But God bless. God bless. Education versus experience. It breaks down like this. In the past, You know, education was this, and we've got to be honest about it. We've got to be honest about it. Education was only for the rich, the elite, the aristocracy. Um, People would hire tutors to train their children, and the common man's education or training was a training system which usually, if we're talking about ages ago, usually was an apprenticeship where you might have been even an indentured servant, not quite a slave, but not really making any money, right? For those, let's break it down. For those today who are electricians, it's that period of time where you're learning and working, but you're not earning that union wage just yet. Are we there? Are we there yet? Let's talk about it. So, education, as we know it, was only for the rich and their children and what they could supply and request. And it was based upon, now think about this, it was based upon them deciding what they wanted their children to learn. Hello? Hello? Okay. So flip it with the initiation of free public education, then you get what you pay for. You get someone else selecting and identifying what you're going to learn. You get someone else choosing and determining what you're going to learn and what you're going to be exposed to. And so education hasn't always looked the same for everybody. Can we say it like that? And still be loved? Education hasn't always looked the same for everybody. And so when we have this equity, debate about education, it's never, public education is never going to equate to what education once was for the rich and the elite, which is this optimistic view, this utopian view that we have of improving education, because as those being educated, as those sending our children to be educated, we're not determining what our children are learning in the same fashion. Basic facts, basic facts. And so those arguments and debates only amount to degrees and facets of what we are receiving within the given system, right? It's like arguing over parts of the hog, right? We're going through all this, and the only thing that's happening is, well, you want that upper back, and you want to leave me the snout and the ears. That's, that, that may not be fair, that may not be equitable, but we're just arguing over parts of the hog. We're not even getting to the rest of what's available on the whole farm. We're just arguing about what's on the hog because that's only been what's been made available to us. God help us. And so now, higher education opportunities in the past were limited to minorities and the marginalized, disabled people, people with special needs, right? People who needed translators, people who needed interpreters. Can you imagine if we peeled back the layer of what, I'm not even talking about state colleges and things of that nature. If we just peeled back the layer of what was going on in universities, private universities that were still getting public funds for education and what they would not do for the disabled at one point, what they would not do for minorities at one point. And then if we really peel back the layers and we look at our Harvards and Yale's, and we break down where their history comes from, these were presbyteries. These were where we get our Presbyterian lodges and churches from. These were supposed to be the training ground for the preachers and teachers of society, and not attached to elitism. Imagine that if we really went back to that. And so in the past, education, no matter how difficult it was to obtain, was highly valued by most of society. That's how it went. That's how it went down. That's how things were. And so in that system, as I said, by viewpoint and by value system, education was, there was a hallmark of, hey, you made it. You did it. Look at you. Now, flip forward to today. And when we look at it, there's a different view when we look at it. And today, experience is a bigger deal. Follow me. Experience as hands-on, real-time learning is a bigger deal. Still learning, still being taught and trained, but that's a bigger deal today than quote unquote formal education. Let's take this and understand what we're talking about. So when you look at someone who can operate technology, graphic design, AI, computer technology, engineering, cybersecurity, those are things that colleges are barely scratching the surface with, and what they're offering isn't necessarily the cutting edge of those areas of expertise. And so if colleges are catching up, where do you get the grit of that training? Where do you get the nuggets of that? By some form of experience, by some form of hands-on and real-time learning. You're breaking down the CPUs. You're breaking down these things and saying, well, okay, if I use the NVIDIA chip instead of the Intel chip, and I build this computer, not only will my stuff be faster, it'll be more secure, but it'll have greater durability. And so you don't learn that by sitting in a lecture hall. You learn that hands-on experience. And so these things become not so much a flip of interchangeable, but they become more valuable in a society where people are trying to have technological advantage. Technological advantage. Remember, that's the value of today. That's the currency of today. Technological advantage. If you can translate and transfer your knowledge of TikTok and YouTube into being a social media manager for a corporation, a public relations manager for a corporation, a publicist for an artist, then boom, you're in there. If you can take your fashionista beauty experience and you can go from being on a glam squad to being someone that is actually coordinating and organizing a person's wardrobe, like a Rachel Zoe or someone of that nature, then you're there in certain circles for celebrities and the rich, the elite, right? Who wants to go shopping these days? Who knows how to go shopping these days? Is it better to buy it off Amazon? Is it better to buy it from the fashion house? Is it better to buy it from the designer themselves? Nobody knows best. And so here it is. Get someone who has that experience and can navigate that for you. That's what people with the ability to do that do today. That's why we get it with Fabletics and all these little Stitch and these shopping things. Oh, we've got expert shoppers that can get it for you. That's a microcosm of what rich folks do. Got a shopper, an interior designer, and someone else, and don't even know the names and the prices of what they got in their home or in their closet. Come on. And so that hands-on experience and real-time learning is what will get you through the door. Even higher education has a different value of experience today. When we talk about it, experience today is valued differently to where you can get college credit for life experience. Come on. You can get college credit for life experience, and that's valued differently than it was 30, 40 years ago. Imagine that. And we know education is still within today's value system because simply having a BA or BS, it isn't enough. That's the equivalent to having a high school diploma back in the day. You need some form of specialization to go along with that. You need some form of graduate work to go along with that. Otherwise, it's not enough to quote unquote make it in today's society. Okay? And so what's truly valued today, in all honesty, is having that experience as an asset, right? Where it has helped you to build your skills and knowledge through hands-on and how-to learning. That's where it is. And so don't fight it. Don't argue about it. That's where it is. That's where the teaching and training of today should point people. That's where when you seek training and courses online, find what's going to get you ahead and get you advanced to what other people value and are willing to pay for. That's what's happening. But if we're going to sit up here and say the debate is simply about, well, I thought college was a valuable experience for me. Yeah, I did too. But I'm on the end of the business and workforce that'll be gone from this system in 20 years. What about the person who's entering this system of business and career? What are they going to do for the next 30 to 40 years between these two, right? And so it's not an either or. It's potentially a mixture, a combination of both, but you need to not be in a position where you could be replaced by a robot. You need to be able to be innovative and on the move enough to where you're thinking, processing, and executing in a manner to where, well, we can't do that with AI. We can't simply replace him with a bot. That's what you need to do. That's where you need to be. And so when we take this into consideration, look at it. Look where we came from. Look where we stand today. It comes down to viewpoint, where you stand, and it comes down to value system. What do you hold highly regarded in this system? Do you believe experience is a greater teacher, or do you believe being in a lecture hall, doing group projects is a greater teacher? That's what it comes down to. That's how it amounts. Mahatma Gandhi said it, I think, best when he said it this way: live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. Peace and God bless.